I live two lives, at least two lives. One is as a teacher, as a consultant with my company. The other is as a professional musician who, when my schedule allows, I tour Ireland and England and the U.S. with different artists. And over the last 30 years, I saw the ways in which music connected to design thinking and to innovation and creativity. And so it's always a pleasure to get to demonstrate that to others. And so 2 years ago, we looked at how music and what happens on the stage relates to empathy. But today we're going to look at, considering the theme of just make it, we're going to look at how the improvisations that musicians use relates to the creative stages that people go through in all levels. So we're going to do a lot of improv with you today. It would be sadly ironic if we planned everything that we're about to do and then told you not to plan to do things. And so, for instance, they don't know what I'm about to do because I wouldn't tell them because I didn't know what I'm about to do. So we're going to do a song for you real quick that we're just going to make up on the spot and then talk a little bit about the role that improvisation and creativity have together. One, two, three, four. Take the lead. Benjamin. And he's an engineer. Go to the B. One of the beautiful things about music and about musicians together is when you can do something like that. Music is kind of its own language. And so there's certain things that when you, this is Adrian and I, this is the second time we've met. And we, maybe in November when I was here, I met Adrian through Benjamin at a studio, and we played for a couple hours. And we didn't know each other, we didn't know any of the same songs, and we played for 2 hours. Because of the way that improv works in music. And so what you need first and foremost to make something in a moment without planning, the questions I guess I want to ask today and show you is what encourages us to create with little or no planning? Because it can be unnerving to improv. I was telling a singer that you'll meet momentarily that one time I got pulled up on the stage for a 2-hour concert and there was no set list. So I had no idea what was going to happen for the next 2 hours. And the guy who invited me up said, and this was in Paris, and he said, just play. And I was like, okay. But he told me, and he's a good friend, he said, I've got you. Which is, I don't know if that expression translates in the verse. Basically, it's like, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. You're going to be okay. And what happens was 2 hours of improvisation on the stage, and you can get away with that so much better in France, by the way, than the U.S. But it was unnerving for pretty much the whole time for me. But I also had fun. And so one of the things I tell people is that it's not that in improvisation you're always comfortable. It's that you get comfortable with not being comfortable, if that makes sense. And so that's part of what musicians embrace, because you don't know what's coming yet. But to do that, one of the key factors we need is a safe place. This is a symbol in the U.S. for a place that marks everyone is safe here, right? And on the stage, you have to create a safe place. So you guys, if you were here 2 years ago, you know I can't handle you not talking back to me. So let me ask you a couple of questions. What do you think you need to create a safe place to be innovative on the spot? You can say it out loud. Not to be judged. Beautiful. What else? Energy. You need a level of just excitement and passion in the room for that to happen. If we all got up here and turned around and we're all like, right, it's not going to encourage a lot of energy from them too, so that's a team effort. What else? Feedback. You need feedback. And it can be live, right? It can be something that is happening. There's something, like I told Adrian before we ended, I told Adrian with a look, we're about to end. And he ended, right? It's like, boom. It's just, there's a communication that's going on. And last time we talked about the way that works on stage with empathy, about listening. I can tell what Adrian's about to do, but the way he hits his hi-hat, right? And I go, okay, he's about to do this. And that's all without talking. What else? Intuition. Yeah. Kind of knowing to go with your gut. Anything else? Smile. Yeah. Happiness is helpful. Yeah. Keep it light. Let me suggest 3 things that go along with those. The qualities of a safe place. One of them is an innovation mindset is expected. When Benjamin and I and Adrian got together, I expected them to be innovative. I didn't expect for them to replicate something I've done or to come and play covers of songs all night. That's okay, but I like innovation and music together. So it's just like the first time we got together, which was, I guess, in November, for those 2 hours, we just each one traded who started the song, and then everyone else had to follow. And that's how I knew we could do what we did today. I said, what's just like what we did in November? We'll just do something like that, right? So we need an innovation mindset as expected. Improvisation is valued because of what can come from it, right? Planning has a place. Deep reflection has a place. Lots of talking has a place. But if that's all you ever do, it's like a bunch of musicians getting around a table and scribbling out musical notes. At some point, you should play it. You should try it. It's a sound first. And we want to hear it. It may look good on paper, but then when we play it, it doesn't really come together. And last, or next to last, egos are left at the door. Right? Don't be offended if you try something, and if I did something bad and Adrian looked at me and went, I shouldn't throw my bass down and walk off the stage. Well, you didn't like what I had to say. It may confuse him. But I'm going to leave my ego at that door, and so is he, so is Benjamin, because we're all wanting each other to generate ideas with that. And then finally, failure on a small scale is okay. And I put that in there because I don't want to improvise with people who we're just going to sound bad the whole time, right? And that would be like if I sat on drums. Not a good idea. This is my instrument. This is the lane I'm in. And so I'm bringing that to the bandstand. But failure on some small scale is okay. In fact, we can learn from that. If we had time, and in the workshop that I'm doing later today, we'll unpack this a little bit, but you can make a wrong note sound right if you do it well in music. So sometimes I've discovered through mistakes, ooh, that would be good for the song. It's not in the key, but tell that to Coltrane. Tell that to Miles Davis. Tell it to any French jazz musician. Last time I was here in November, I went to a Charlie Hayden band tribute, which is an American bass player that's dear to my heart. I used to live in his house, and so they took me to it, and it was so wonderful to see and all the improvisation that happens. But they played wrong notes on purpose, just to explore music a little bit. So we need a safe place. So here are the rules of improv, and you're going to be improving with us today, so I want you to be aware of the rules. 1, you start by saying yes. You smile and say, yes, that's a good idea. And then there's some of you have already said it. What's the other part of that? Yes, and, right? You add to it. You don't get improv to, you improv with. This is why we're going to do what we're going to do in a minute, because if I just improv in front of you, that would be kind of lame. You have to do it with us. You have to add to us, so you're going to participate with us. You must be present in that moment. And this is hard in our work days. And I work with a lot of companies, large-scale companies. They're like, I'm too busy to do this. I'm like, then that proves you need to do it. If you're too busy to slow down for half an hour and do something creatively that is unplanned, I would say that you're too busy in general. So be present in that moment. Don't think about the other things that you're doing or have to do. Let that go for the short time. So when I walk into a band situation, I have a lot of stuff that's going on in my life, but for that moment, they have me. I'm theirs, and I'm giving to them, and we're going to see what we can come up with. Be curious, not critical. If Benjamin tries something in a solo, and I were to go, well, he was a half note off on that one part where he was like, who cares? What I want to know is, why is he doing what he's doing? And again, there's a place for critical approaches to creativity. We all know that. But in an improv moment, you're curious about it, not critical. And finally, to quote Veronique, this is an expression we use all the time in music. Don't think so much. Just play. Right? You have someone over there and it's like, I can play my scales up, I can play my scales down. I can play my scales up, I can play my scales down. Like, got it. You know your scales. Quit thinking about your scales and groove. Right? Just give me something that feels good. I want to be able to dance to it. Right? I don't want to go, oh, that's an incredible use of the harmonic classic minor scale. There's a place for that. There absolutely is a place for that. But in a jam, which is the improv world of music, don't think, just play. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask us to think about this, that there are no mistakes in a moment that you put brackets around and say, we're going to be creative, we're just going to make it in this moment. There are no mistakes, only opportunities to learn, opportunities to discover, opportunities to explore. And in that space, this is what we're about. Later, we can talk about things that come from this. So I'm going to ask us to consider 3 questions today. And we're going to do this very rapidly because of our time limitations. But each of these are something you can take a deep dive into. When you get together for an improv session, what are you making? What's the goal? In our case, it's music. And we'll answer these questions with you in a second. Who should help us make it? Whom you choose to interact with in an improv situation is crucial. I need to know on certain levels that they can do something with me musically. I do jams with people who are just beginning in music too, right? And that's a different moment for me because there I have to be careful of where I take them because of what they're able to do on their instruments. Benjamin is a highly skilled guitar player. Adrian is a highly skilled drummer. So I can about do anything I want in this room, and I know they're going to follow me. But if I were to step into a different team, I have to think, who's able to help me with that and bring that to bear? I don't want to make people uncomfortable in jam sessions. Finally, how should we go about making it? Well, on the what should we make, I'd just like to give you a couple of tips to think about in these moments. And then on the who, we're going to park there for a little bit and have an activity. What should we make? I'd like you to consider a few things with that. Make something that meets a need. Now that relates to market, and that's fine. If the market demands it, we can make it. If the market demands more pop music, we can do it. But there's also a market for jazz, there's also a market for funk, there's also a market for world music in and outside of non-Western cultures, which is wonderful about the internet because we get so much music now that we couldn't have access to. But we also need something that solves a problem sometimes. And that means that we're being helpful in that moment. What's the task we're setting ourselves to? Right? And in music, we do this. If you get together and you want, style-wise, you might say, let's work on jazz. What we just did was kind of a fusion funk piece. And we might say, let's just work on that for a couple hours, and let's see what comes out of it. And we may say, because the town we live in needs more funk. I believe every town needs more funk, by the way. Every town could be just a little more funky, other than Oakland, California, which is super funky, and that's where funk was invented. So they got it. But everywhere else, Nashville can be a little more funky. Trust me. It's got a lot of country. We need more funk. Choose to make a session something that pushes you. You know, when we were talking about this earlier, I said, I'm always, in these improv moments, I'm always a little uncomfortable because I'll be pushed into a place I'm not comfortable with. But that's part of the moment. If I'm doing a very strict concert with an artist and their name's on the marquee, I want to play every note right or I'll get fired. But in other genres, I get the freedom to be pushed out of my boundaries because it's fusion or because it's jazz in that way. And the expectation is not to play every single note perfectly. So at that point, I'm looking at an improv session as being a place where I develop. Not just where I produce something, but also in the process I develop. And then something that I would argue here is something that we make that moves the world forward. And to me, that's an ethical question. Are you making something that moves us as people forward? In the music world, my hope with music is that it always is making us better people. And so how am I participating in that? When I'm thinking of the projects that the ME310 students did, I was here in November at the beginning stages, and to see the way in which what they're doing helps people be better people, do better, succeed more, that answers that question. But you also have to ask, who should be helping us with it? A team. Design thinking is built upon the concept that we work best in collaboration. And music is a perfect example of that. Yes, you can stay at home in front of a YouTube camera and play for the camera, and a lot of people do. And I meet them someday and they can't play with a band because they've been playing by themselves so much. No matter how skilled they are, when you get them in an ensemble, they struggle because they're not used to being on a team. And so let me argue that this kind of activity is best done with a team. So, what's a good improv team have? It's a team that embraces improvisation as a development tool. So when I get together with these guys and we're improving, we're realizing that we're discovering and that the goal is not to have this finely tuned, finished, polished thing when we're done, right? We might even record an improv session in music to get ideas later, but no one's expecting this to go on iTunes after we're done. And I hope none of this will go on iTunes after we're done, or YouTube. But just because it's meant to be developmental. You need to trust each other in improv teams. And that comes from the non-judging that we talked about. It also comes from knowing different people within the teams. Right? So Benjamin and I met a couple years ago, and we came on the stage, and it was the first time we had played together, and he did really well, and I learned to trust him real quickly. He then said, you need to meet this drummer. Okay, if you say to meet him, I'll meet him, because you know how I am. So I meet Adrian. Today, in a moment, we're going to bring up someone I just met this morning. But Benjamin told me he's good. I trust Benjamin, right? And I trust Adrian, and I trust the process. And so part of what we're looking for is trust. And then finally, a good improv group invites outside influence and perspective. And so that's you today, because I want you to help us write a song. All right? But before we do that, I want to bring up a wonderful singer I met this morning. He flew all the way from Switzerland, Gwen Thomas. So Gwen and I just met this morning. We learned like an hour ago. And I said, "Are you ready for this?" He goes, "Sure." So I told him, we don't know what we're doing, right? Yep. I was like, "Then you're good for the team." So Gwen is a singer. He's in a band with Tiana, who will come up later. They're in a very successful band. They have an album coming out in the near future. And they've flown in just for today to work with us. So Gwen has a role that he's going to play in a moment. So how about let's write a song together? We've all listened to music, right? Everybody that has listened to music, raise your hand. If one of you refuses to raise your hand, we're going to have a talk later. So we're all familiar with how music works. So you don't need to play an instrument to write a song. You don't need to be great at vocals to write a song. You're going to help us to write a song. So what do we need? Well, we need a subject to write about. So let's hear some subjects. Love. It's never been written about. That's a novel idea. So love, we could write about love, and that would be a first. No, I'm just kidding. That's a great topic, right? Why is it love is such a common topic in music? It's complex. That's a French answer right there. If I did this in America, because it's wonderful. Oh, and you said, oh, well, have you been here? I was going to say, in France, your relationship's always complicated. Sitting next to you, oh, I'm sorry. Are you French? That's why it's complicated. So love, what else? Let's get some other topics. Weather. Weather is also complicated. Yesterday it said it would not rain, and then it rained. So that's complicated. Okay, you know what, Gwen? I think you should write a love song about weather. Understanding it's complicated. Right? We love weather, do we not? Sometimes. And sometimes it irritates. It's a lot like a relationship now. There are sunny days, there are not sunny days, there are days you want to stay home, you don't want to see the weather. Okay, this is one. So we're going to set Gwen to task writing lyrics about love and weather. Is that okay with you? Yeah. All right. So he's going to do the lyrics while we're working on the other parts. What do you also need with music? You need chords, and chords are usually in a key. So we need a key, and I've got that covered because I have these dice that are all in G major. And so you're going to help us with this. I'm going to throw these dice out. Try not to catch it with your face. Each one of these dice has a chord from G major on it. You get to determine if you can catch this. You get to determine the first chord of the song. Okay? Does that work? Well done. That was well done. She caught it. I'm not being sued. All right. Someone else? Have the second chord. Wait. The weather love team. My wife told me this would be dangerous. And I told her it's improv. It's always dangerous. All right. So that's the second chord of the song. They'll choose from that. Here? Anyone? If you don't put your hands up, I'm still going to throw it. Nicely done. And the final chord of the song. Who wants it? Felix is right? Oh, nice. That was a bad throw. Okay. So, who has the first dice? Pick a chord on there. 6? That's an interesting chord. That's the number of the dice, but there's a letter on there too. Do you see a letter on that same? Thank you. That actually is the minor. So A is our first chord. Thank you. And this is Tiana, by the way. A is the first chord. All right. Second. F sharp. F sharp. Oh, yeah, you're kind of crazy. You are complicated. F sharp is the next chord. Third chord. Oh, you're a gambler. You're like, I'm not going to make a decision here. I'm just going to let C. Nice. And our final, Felix. B minor. Oh, you want to go dark at the end. I see how it is. Yeah, another French thing. All right. We're going to start out here. We're just going to go. It's like a French film. We're just going. All right. So those are the chords. Do you want the song to be up tempo or down tempo? Anyone? Up. You want to be up tempo. Okay, so up tempo, Adrian. All right. What else do we need? We have a few chords. We have an arrangement. All right? So let's just hear these chords for a second. All right? Those are the 4 chords. Adrian, kick us off, and we'll play those and see how we feel about it. That work for you? All right, so let's say that's nicely done. That's a very good arrangement. I kind of like that. I'm going to steal that. You'll see it on iTunes later. It's good. That will be the verse. Benjamin's, because we think it's cooperative. Benjamin, could you suggest a 2-chord course that we could go to? If Benjamin didn't mention it, he came to the U.S. and studied at a very nice music school in L.A. for a year. So he knows all this theory and all this fancy stuff about music. So I'm going to make him choose the chords.
You can do something like C, D, and E minor, and E minor. Like
C, D, E minor? So that's our course. Does that work with you? All right, so let's put it together. We just need a singer. Gwen, are you ready?
What?
You don't have to. There's no mistakes, buddy. So we have a microphone for Gwen.
Yeah.
This is a new kind of singing technique where you hold a laptop in one hand and sing with the other. It makes for a large bicep on just one side of your body.
It's called design singing.
Wrong. Design. Nice. All right, so let's do an intro, and then Gwen, when you're ready, you'll sing us, and when you want us to kick into the chorus, just tell us, and we'll go to the chorus.
You did it fast.
What say?
You did it fast.
Yeah, we did it fast.
Yeah.
You can just make it up or use a language that no one understands, or create words.
Yeah.
It can be scat, anything you want.
Let's do it.
Adrian, whenever you're ready.
What I love about you is that you're unstable. What I love about you is that you run the world. What I love about you is that you make me, you drive me crazy. What I love about you is that you do everything you want. You drive me crazy. So rainy days, you drive me crazy. Snowy, rainy, sunny days. Oh, 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 oh,
Gwen Thomas, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful. I'm never going to think of weather the same way. Again, feels kind of groovy and sexy now. So I was up there, okay, this is all right. Well, you know a song's good when you want to stop playing so you can listen to it. I just want to kind of go, okay, I'm just going to hit back and listen to him. This is my first time to get to see him do this, right? So for me, it's a discovery process. And this is the beauty of improvisational moments, is often they lead to deeper creative relationships. Like I guarantee you after today, Gwen and Tiana and I are going to be in touch. Because Nashville has a lot of music, but we need that kind of music our way, right? And so I think you're touring next year. And so there's, that to me is a beauty. It's a relationship, right? It's creative. So in that moment, not bad, right? In a moment. So some things I want you to think about in relationship to why that can work. We have musicians, but they're not just musicians up here, right? And we all know that interdisciplinary group appreciates multiple perspectives, but there needs to be some evaluating of how you go about doing something like this. And even though I've not done this with Gwen before or Adrian before in this way, I've done that with other people, and I imagine they do too. And so you get into a habit, a creative habit, where you're comfortable with the uncomfortable. So how do we make stuff like that? Well, we build upon what we already know, right? I know the bass, I don't know the guitar well, and I really don't know the drums. So it would not be a good idea in this kind of session for me to sit there, and I don't know if Adrian plays a little bass, for Adrian to come over here. We figure out what we already know, but we build upon it, and we're listening. The empathy thing I talked about 2 years ago is perfectly at play here. I'm listening to what Adrian's doing. If he's building up, then I start going. You hear us working together. But we're building upon what we know. That had an R&B feel. That's your background, right? I can tell that in the way he sings. And so everyone's building upon what we already know, but at the same time stretching. We embrace the journey, the failures, small scale, Veronique, and the successes. And Dave Kelly has a wonderful way of talking about failure. So many people, when they fail, quickly move on, rather than stop and go, what can I learn from the failure, right? What can I learn? Did anyone hear me hit that wrong note during there? Veronique, you did? Oh, kind of a musical snob, aren't you? I taught her to play bass 2 years ago on stage, and now she knows. No, you did.
It's your eye.
I know. That wasn't right. But you can embrace that. And so I just went with it. It's like, if I'm going to play it wrong, I'm going with it, right? If I play the wrong feel. I ended the song on E, but we began it on A. Did anyone catch how fast Benjamin moved to it? Benjamin did, right? Because I didn't tell him that we were going to do that. But he just went, because at that point, I'm guiding the song. You could say that's a mistake, but it's not. He just used it, embraced it, and went with it the same way I did earlier. So embracing that is a journey. Finally, be fearless, but not reckless, right? And there's a difference, and some of you know what I'm talking about. You want to enter into it like, I'm not scared of what's going to happen. I told Gwen on the way up here, he goes, oh, this is a little nervous. And I said, yeah, but no one's going to die. Because that's like the worst case scenario, right? I'm like, no one's going to die after that. We're all good. We're all good, right? So I'm going to be a little fearless with what we do. I've not done this with you before, but let's just go. But I'm not reckless, right? We're in some control. There's things that we can control being crazy in that way. And then finally, when you're done with this kind of session, if it's 30 minutes or it's a week, be reflective. Go back and ask yourself, what did I learn from that? Where did I struggle? Where do I need improvement? How can I even improv better next time? People who do improv as a profession are amazing at it because of this last step, because they reflect, because they think back and go, yeah, next time I might try this, or next time I try that. And then they take that information, and that becomes step one. Now they're building upon what we know. I guarantee you, if we did this again, and we'll do a version of it in the workshop, we'll do it better the second time, because we're all building and reflecting like, okay, I feel Gwen a little bit better now. I got a sense of who he is, right? And now he's got a sense of this band that he's working with. And so all that information comes into the next improv session. But if you do not do the last step, if you just go forward and you don't ever look back and think, what can I gain from that? Then I feel like you've missed the developmental process of improv. I am much better at improv today than I was last year, than I was a year before that. And if you went back to when I started playing bass, if you threw me anything I didn't know, I was going to walk. right? Because I knew like 2 songs. And I started playing bass, so I had a gig because bass players, they get that. You learn 2 songs, you have a gig as a bass player. I mean, it's really, and in Nashville, it's like, that will make you millions. Yeah. Gets a little crazy right here. Right? So this is not a complicated instrument. But if I didn't reflect on every experience, every artist I play for, I think, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from going up on a stage in Paris and not knowing any of the set list? Well, I can learn a lot from that. Even the mistakes that I made. And there were some mistakes made. But no one cared because we were in that spirit. The audience was in that spirit. Okay? So, we'd like to leave you with a little tune, if that's okay, as we go out. But I want to thank you, Veronique, for having us. I hope this helps a little bit as you make creative projects and creative enterprises, as you engage in those ways. I hope you'll build some time in there where there's no safety net, and you just try a few things. But for this last song, for just a moment, can we have Tiana? Can you come up and join us for one song? And we'll do one so you can sing along with us. This happens to be one of my favorite tunes of all time, and we asked Tiana and Gwen if they would sing it with us.
Come on!
Very superstitious, washing on the wall.
Very superstitious, let us about to fall. 13 months old baby, broken looking blood. 7 years of power, the good things in your past. When you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstitions in the way. 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 When you believe, when you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstitions in the way.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Benjamin Nussbaumer on the guitar and Adrian Guy on drums. Thank you.